Alright, good morning class and welcome back to my home kitchen. Today we'll be looking at making the Middle Eastern chicken from your text. You will need approximately 2 chicken thighs, half a teaspoon of salt, half a teaspoon of ground cumin, half a teaspoon of ground cinnamon, quarter of a teaspoon of black pepper, quarter of a teaspoon of ground turmeric, 2 tablespoons of olive oil or vegetable oil, half an onion sliced, 25 grams of ginger, julienne or just crushed or whatever you've got, 1 clove of garlic, once again, or the equivalent, half a fresh chili, half a tomato diced, quarter of a teaspoon of cumin seeds, 2 sprigs of thyme, half a lemon with the zest and the juice. You'll need 2 teaspoons of honey, 2 tablespoons of currants, some vegetable stock, and some coriander to serve. Now I have most of mine set up for you, so it should be nice and quick today. The first thing it asks you to do is combine all of the spices together, place them in a bag, turn them into a mush, and then combine it with your chicken. I diced my chicken up and covered it with the spices just before. It tells you to do this in a bag for a few different reasons. 1, it's a quick, easy way to do it. 2, one of the spices in it, turmeric, is yellow, very bright yellow. It will stain everything. Your hands, your clothes, your utensils, everything. So if you want to do it that way, you can. I just did it in my bowl. I'm just going to stir mine around. Ideally, we would give it a little bit of time to marinate as well, but it's got time for that. So I'll just stir it around for a little bit, and then I'll start cooking it off. So I'll turn on my pan now while I'm stirring this, so I can do that. So once we've actually got your stove to light, fine, be that way. I didn't want fire anyway. Ugh. So once you have a functional stove top, I could be so lucky. Once you've got your pan on, check on your chicken, which you should have hopefully already marinated. Like I said, I diced mine up. The recipe does tell you to do it into little 4 pieces. I used a little bit more because once again, I'm cooking for more than just 2 people. So I always add a little bit more to the recipe than required. I did also, like I said, added a little bit of oil to my mixture rather than turning it into a thick paste. This meant I could get it to coat all of my foodstuffs pretty quickly and pretty easily. So what I'm going to do is heat the oil I had in this saucepan. The other half of the oil I had from the start of the recipe. Half went into the marinade, half went into the pot. So I'm going to heat that for a minute or so, and then we're going to start frying off the chicken. It does tell you to use a heavy based pan on a high heat. Just use whatever you've got. Once again, heavy based is going to work better. You're going to have better temperature control. It's going to heat up and stay hot longer. But once again, use what you got. So what we're going to do is cook the chicken on a high heat. It's going to go in a second. And we're going to remove it once it starts to brown up. We're going to put it over the side. I've got a bowl ready over here. So that's what I'll be doing with that. And then we're going to start cooking off the rest of the ingredients. Like that. Now with my marinade that's in this bowl, I'm going to use my rubber spatula and scoop out as much of it as possible. I want all that flavour in my food, not just wasted in this bowl. I'm going to go wash it in a minute in the sink. Get all that marinade out into the pot. So we're just trying to cook that chicken as evenly as we can. Just move it around. Remember, you guys might only be using a few pieces. I'm using a little bit extra today, like I said. Turn up and on. So you can see That chicken is slowly starting to get a little bit of colour to it. We still need to cook it a little bit longer. We're not actually fully cooking it at this stage. We're just browning it. And then we're going to start cooking off the rest of the ingredients and then add the chicken in later. This stage will take a little bit longer for me because, like I said, I've got a few extra ingredients in mind. And you'll notice on my chopping board I have far more than a tomato and a few other things that are required. I've got a whole chili there and a big heaped spoon of ginger and garlic. Off the back I've got my lemon juice, my thyme and the currants, the honey and the cumin seeds all ready to go to add when appropriate. And off to the side obviously I have matches in case my stove doesn't work. Because you just have to be prepared for these kinds of things apparently. So you guys can hopefully see the chicken is starting to turn white, but we've still got to cook it just a little bit longer. We want to try and get a little bit of colour onto the chicken itself. So it is going to take a few minutes. Chicken's almost there, guys. Bear with me. So hopefully once the steam passes, you guys can see all of that chicken's got colour to it. We have heaps of oil down the bottom still, which we're going to be using in a second anyway. And that's also the combination of the juices from the chicken. So I'll start using my tongs just to remove the chicken. We're going to turn the heat down and we'll start adding the onion, garlic and the ginger. Remember that this chicken is not cooked at this point. Do not eat the chicken. Do not eat raw chicken. It's not good for you. Hopefully I don't have to explain that to you. Hopefully. If you have a slotted spoon, this would also work well at this step. Once again though, if you're following the recipe, you have cut it into 4 pieces and not just diced it up like I have. But I always go rogue. That's what I do. Follow your recipes until you know what you're doing, guys. They do exist for a reason. I feel like I've probably been cooking a little bit longer than you guys, so it's okay if I change a few things occasionally. Theoretically, I know what I'm doing. Theoretically. Alright, so I've got all my chicken off to the side. You'll see I've kept all that juice in the pan. I've got all that oil still. And we're going to start incorporating the garlic and ginger and the chili. I'll need to find a wooden spoon. All that straight in, and I'll turn the heat back up. The tomato is not going in yet, so don't stress about that one. That's why I've still got that on my chopping board. So I'll turn the heat on this one back up, and we'll start sauteing all this off. Should hopefully get pretty hot pretty quick. It's going to start picking up some of the flavours and the aromas and the colour from the chicken. Obviously there was things like turmeric in there, which is going to give it a nice yellow colour almost straight away. Remember guys, if you don't like chili, only use a little bit. If you're like me and you're quite fond of it, feel free to add a little bit extra. If you just don't want to waste half a chili in your fridge, go ahead and use the whole thing. Once again, remember this is up to you what you do with it. So we're going to cook this for 2 or 3 minutes until it basically softens up the onion. And then we're going to add in the tomato, cumin seeds and the thyme. Cook that for another 2 or 3 minutes. And then we'll talk about adding the chicken again. Or returning the chicken to the pan. Assuming you put all the right things into the pot at this point, it should smell fantastic. I don't know how you could get it wrong. I mean, I like to think I made it pretty simple, but you never know. Anything's possible. Remember, we're just sauteing it off lightly. We're just trying to soften all of that onion up. I did just slice it today. I didn't actually dice it, so you do want to make sure you cook it all the way through so you can actually eat the food without big chunks. Alright guys, after you've cooked that one out for 2 or 3 minutes, you can then start adding in your tomato and the cumin seeds and the thyme, as I said before. So I'm going to start incorporating those now. I'm going to start with tomato and then I'll add my spices. And then we need to cook those off for about another 2 or 3 minutes. It does say to dice up your tomatoes. I'm probably going to have to cook mine out for a little bit longer than the recipe says. So I didn't actually dice my tomatoes up that much. You probably could use a canned tomato for something like this, but it's better with fresh. But once again, use what you've got. The heat will soften your tomatoes and they'll slowly start to break down, which is what we're after. You can get those herbs in there. All of mine are already in this little measuring cup, because sometimes I like to be prepared. Sometimes. I get those straight in there. Once again, we're going to cook this out for 2 or 3 minutes. Might just turn the heat down slightly. And we'll let that saute away. What I didn't get out today was some kind of stock cube. What do I have up the top here? That is the mystery of the day. Where did my stock go? The salt. This will do. So I'll give my pot a quick stir. I found a stock cube. You guys can see, hopefully, that those tomatoes are starting to break down a little bit. The skin is starting to peel off, they're starting to get a little bit softer. Combining with the onion. Throw that back on the heat. We're getting close to adding our next lot of ingredients, which is pretty much returning everything into the pot and slowly cooking it out for about 10 to 15 minutes. But we'll see how long it takes. That can go back up to the top. So now that we've cooked that out, you can see that most of the liquid's actually absorbed, funny enough. All the tomatoes are starting to soften, they're still pretty firm. We can basically start adding the rest of the ingredients. So we return the chicken to the pot, including the juices that are in the bottom. You definitely want that in there. So scoop that one out. Give that a quick stir while I'm walking between the sections. Put my stock cube in. recipe does say half. Remember that I'm making a little bit more than the recipe asked for. I've got my lemon zest and juice in this little cup, so that goes straight in. And I have some currants. If you wanted to use raisins or sultanas or whatever, go for it. Use what you've got. I do recommend adding elements like that to dishes. It does add a little bit different flavor profile, a little bit different texture, and they change and absorb the flavors of the dish as they cook. It's really delicious. Now I need to add some honey, and I need to add some water. So I think it's 2 teaspoons of honey. So I'll probably add a tablespoon, because once again, cooking for more than 2 people. Honey is so slow. Nice generous scoop. And I'll turn my pan down while my honey is entering the pot. And then I'm going to cover this with water and cook it out for about 10 to 15 minutes. Remember that currently the chicken is not cooked, so we do need to cook this out for at least another 5 to 10 minutes to get all that cooked, otherwise I'm going to get sick. It's not going to be pleasant. So if you're trying to get the last little bit of honey out of a container like this, if you put a little bit of water on your finger and then just rub it out of the container, or wipe it out of the container, usually it comes off without sticking to you so much. So that's a pretty quick and easy way to clean that little container. You will then need to wash your hands, of course, but it's only a minor inconvenience. Now, with this at this step, what the recipe asks you to do, I'll bring this over here so hopefully you can see it, is basically cover it with water. So I'll just poke all my ingredients down into the pot and I'll just add enough water to basically cover the dish. And then we need to simmer it, I believe. So we just want to have enough water to basically cover all the chicken. Yeah, get the whole lot in there. I added about 500 mils. So you can see that pretty much covers everything in the pot. So we'll put it back on the stove and we'll turn the heat up a little bit to get that water to the right temperature, and then we'll turn it down again later. So we can cover it with a lid at this point and simmer it for 10 to 15 minutes. Basically, we just need to cook it until all of the chicken is cooked, and then we can serve it up with some rice or some couscous or anything else you really wanted to use. I'll probably cut the video here. I might add a little bit later on showing you what it might look like before I take it out of the pan, and then I'll hopefully put in some kind of imagery about what it looks like when you eat it, or well, when I eat it. Alright guys, until then, enjoy the rest of your day. See you, bye.